James, thank you so much for taking the time out of your incredibly busy life, and we're going to find out why it's so busy in a minute, to come and chat to me on the Estate Agency Leaders podcast. It's a slightly unusual one, but one of the bits which a lot of estate agents wrestle with in the process is sales progression. And so would you mind sort of, I guess, introducing yourself and just giving me a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having us, Ian. My history and experience to date was in a estate agency since the young age of 19. I worked for lots of corporate companies, sort of working my way up through the ranks there, and ended up owning my own estate agency in Surrey and Berkshire, Buckinghamshire. Had close links with lots of people sort of in and around the industry. And I suppose I got to the stage where sort of early 40s, where some people still love doing it and still love valuing every day and selling every day and negotiating offers. I'd fulfilled that urge and that sort of element of the business. And actually, I wanted something new and something different while still tapping into the skills and the experience that I'd learned 3 or 4 years ago. Was looking at different businesses, looking at different elements of the industry that we could move into. And the sales progression side of things, I'd felt for a long time was unfortunately broken in the UK. The time that it was taking my sales for my agency to go through was getting longer and longer. The pipelines were turning probably 3 times a year, whereas when I first started, you'd look to try and get them out at least 4 or 5 times a year, like to make sure your cash flow was working as a business owner. With all the technological advances that had come in, things getting better and easier, presumably, I just couldn't actually get my head around why it had got so bad. And from that, the natural sort of evolution for me was to look at how we could improve it, and was there something we could do and launch that would help businesses, including my own, to improve the process for the clients and the business owners. So out of that was born the company QuickChain.
Okay, great. And so it's an outsourced sales progression company. And what I'd love to dig into today, if it's okay, is about why you think it's taking so long for transactions to go through.
Well, they think now, don't they, that it's you look at an average of about 16 and a half to 17 weeks, which is just insane, isn't it, really? When you think about when you break that process down, an offer's been accepted and we now just need to get to exchange a contract, why is it taking so long? My answer on that is, and sorry for any conveyancers that are listening on this, I think the standard of conveyancing has plummeted. Bigger sort of conveyancing companies that work far too much on a sort of pilot hire, sell it cheap model. When I first started, you had 4 or 5 really good local solicitors that would work on 30 or 40 cases. They knew all the properties. It was all sort of kept local and in-house, and you could basically go and knock on their door and get your deals through and make sure that it was happening. That's evolved, and it isn't happening now. And with I think the consumers want, if you like, for cheaper services, unfortunately that has led to a big conveyancing companies in some cases that can't handle the workloads or are not experienced enough to actually get these deals through in a timely manner. One of the things you've got there is building relationships with those solicitors to shorten that period and cut out and do work up front to make sure this stops and we can try and reverse this trend.
Absolutely. So there's certainly been a huge downward pressure on fees for conveyancers. And when I think about, once you take away the referral fees, what a conveyancing company is being paid for an individual transaction, it's probably anything from 400 to 800 quid. Estate agency fees have been under huge pressure, and nationally the estate agent's fee is about £3,000. And if you think about how much work a lawyer who charge themselves out at £200, £250 an hour, like how many hours work are they going to put into a £400 fee? And it's probably about 2. And therefore, you're not going to get a fully qualified lawyer to do that for 2 hours. And therefore, you're not going to have a fully qualified lawyer looking at it at all. You're going to have the next rung down of qualifications to be able to do that. Okay, great. What about things like other core reasons that sales fall through? What's the number one reason which you guys see at QuickChain?
Buyers and sellers not being handheld and knowing the process from A to Z. And things like late surveys. Oh, I haven't had a survey done. Well, that should have been picked up a lot sooner. We would always advise any business owners or people that are doing their sales progression, you'd want that booked in within the first 7 to 10 days. And that's all done at the setup stage when solicitors are being handed over, offers agreed, and the deal's all tied up. Fall through rates, I would say having control of the chains. So every chain that you deal with is only as strong as the weakest link. What we tend to find with our clients, so when a case is handed over to us, the very first job we're doing is qualifying that chain and the sale for that business. We all know we've probably all employed very eager, sale-hungry negotiators. Deal done, ringing the bell, that's it, off it goes, I'm off to my next one. A good deal takes 2-3 hours at least to check every single link thoroughly. You want solicitors, brokers, names of buyers, what have they done so far? And as an experienced sales progression team, we know immediately 3 links down when it's all a little bit flaky, they haven't instructed solicitors yet, they've been going 3 weeks, we're going back and we're saying, listen, your chain's built on sand, right? Our advice here is you keep your viewings going, or this agent at the bottom here grabs hold of this and makes sure that it's all solid. And you're doing that straight away. So there's you're not wasting your time, everyone knows where they're at, or we're pushing everyone in the right direction of where the pressure and the focus needs to go if one element of the chain isn't performing.
James, that's a really, really good point, and the quality of a pipeline is basically dictated by what's put into it. But if the psychological reward for a negotiator is, the high five or the bell ring of I've got a deal, then actually it's not necessarily about the money. It's about the psychological reward of I've got it, I've won, I've done it.
Yeah.
And therefore making sure that they can't ring the bell until that sale is fully signed off, that sale is fully bagged and tagged. I remember when I was a young negotiator, probably, 19, 20 years old, not dissimilar to when you first joined the business. And I remember calling the estate agent to check the chain, and they told me, oh yeah, we've spoken to at that time it was the Halifax below, and they've got a first-time buyer who's buying the property. And I was like, thank you very much, first-time buyer, Halifax, all job done. Yeah. Called, submitted the offer, had the offer accepted. 1 week later, I was called through the chain, and it turns out that actually that first-time buyer hadn't had their offer accepted, and that house to the Halifax had not sold. And I had submitted this offer on the strength of what the agent in the middle of the chain had told me about the bottom of the chain, and I'd taken their word for it. And I'll tell you what, I had to call the seller back and say, I'm really sorry, but I made a mistake.
But you never did that again, though.
I never, ever did it again. And it's so important. How experienced do you think someone needs to be in order to be a sales progressor?
It's quite a different skill set. It's not an administrative skill set, but I suppose elements of it are, because there's still got to be a sales element to it and that sort of mindset. But I would say they would need to be doing it for at least sort of 6 months to a year before you would sort of be given a pipeline, if you like, of deals. It's changed. It's like the industry's the industry's changing so much, I think, with these different elements, outsourcing different elements of things. And I think to really move it forward, you need dedicated people on the back end of your pipeline. That's what it's been feeling to me for a long time. And where the industry is sort of evolving away and going to like self-employed agents as well, the 2.4 agency where you're a manager, assistant managers, lots of neg sales progressors, 3 secretaries sitting there in this monster of a branch. I think it's evolving away from that, and it's more hybrid, it's more customer centric. So you're focusing on the experience they're going to get, and they want to buy into you.
So if you were recruiting for a sales progressor, and you were running your independent estate agency business, how would you go about working out which person you would hire and which ones you wouldn't?
Ideally, they had a bit of property experience, but not that wouldn't be the be all and end all. I think it'd be someone with a lot of attention to detail and a bit thick-skinned, actually. Very thick-skinned, because we love conveyancers and we love solicitors. The love probably doesn't come back quite as strongly the other way in all cases. You've got to be prepared to speak to a 30, 40-year-old experienced solicitor and be prepared to question them and ask difficult questions that they might not be comfortable asking or sort of getting involved in. If you're a sort of shrinking violet and you're not prepared to do that, you can't always hide behind emails, because they'll just get ignored. And it's making the call. When do you move from a sort of polite email to a, right, we're in it here. We need to have a proper conversation with this solicitor. We need to find out exactly how we grab hold of it and make this move forward. Because if we don't, it'll fall through. There's an excellent little test we do when we're recruiting. It's got nothing to do with property at all. But they ping up about 10 questions, solving the most ridiculous problems, and it's really interesting finding out people's mindsets on sort of how they're wired and what can they do to solve a sort of issue.
That's really interesting. Okay, great. Well, one final question before we have a quick break. One of the other bits which was in the original home information pack, and I totally take, so HIPs, which sort of came in and out around 06, 07. And one of the key bits which was in the original version was called a home condition report, which was effectively a sort of survey light of the property, so that not only did you have the searches, you had potentially a draft contract, but you also had a report on the condition of the property. What would your views be, assuming that there was the capacity of people to do it, which I think would be the key issue? What would your view be on that being added into those sort of pre-market packs?
Oh, great question, actually. If I'm looking at the businesses we look after and the sort of the scope of the properties that they've got, a lot of lenders do desktop valuations now, so you don't get that property being checked out, so to speak, at that point. If the vendor was paying for that element, but the buyer wasn't having a survey anyway, they knew what they were buying, they knew what they was getting into, it would almost be a bit of a waste of money for the vendor that's doing it. However, if it was a home condition report that was carried out by a registered professional, RS, all registered, and there's no ambiguity about it being impartial, I think it'd be a great thing, because again, that's then provided with the draft contract pack as an X. How long would they be valid for? Probably 3 months. That's the sort of period you'd get on them.
My sense of it is it would need to be longer than 3 months in order for it to be massively useful. I mean, they have these in Scotland, of course. This system already exists. And when I was chatting to Chris yesterday morning, one of the points he made to me is that they have an 87% completion rate in Scotland, and we have a, whatever it is, 54% completion rate. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. No. What we need sellers packs of whatever description, which would be accepted by the lenders. And one of the points which I was making in the sort of Project 28 meetings that we had is, it would be great to have some form of home condition report, but there are two fundamental challenges. Number one, there is not the surveying capacity in the UK to be able to suddenly do, instead of doing 1 million surveys. So if you assume that 1 million transactions go through, let's just call it 1 million surveys. I'm sure it's a bit more than that, 'cause you've got the fall through, so call it 1.3. But number of listings which come onto Rightmove, 2 million. So suddenly we'd have to increase the surveying capacity in the UK by 50% for residential. The people who would be against it would say we're adding friction for the discretionary seller to put their house on the market. That seller who is just thinking about it, but all I would do is I'd redirect those people back to the fact that, to what extent is it a good outcome for an estate agent where you're only selling 54% of the house which go to market? In London, last year, it was 37%. 1 in 3 listings that we put onto the market ends up completing.
You think of the monetary value behind that.
It's just crazy.
It'd be absolutely, and that's without factoring in people's time, effort, the deals that go down at the 11th hour, and the different sort of clauses that agents have tried to sort of bring in, upfront fees, ready, willing and able clauses. And I think in the country there's been with the advent of a Martin Lewis, so to speak, telling people what their rights are and what to do. I think someone like that would actually support a vendor pack, because you are wasting so much time
and money. And if you got that condition report done right at the point of putting the house on the market, it said, listen, your ridge tiles look like the pointing's a bit loose, get someone out, and if it was going to cost,
I suppose it would be the equivalent of what, like a level 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah. So home condition report,
hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's it. Listen, feels like a great time to take a break. So thank you so much for your insights so far.
Pleasure.
My name's Carl Child and I'm the MD of Ashton's. That's the beauty with Greenhouse, is that we will be able to change things and we will be able to tailor it to how we would like to use it. It's given us that confidence that we know we can increase their turnover.
I don't know how familiar you are with Peter Knight and Leaders Inc. and the Property Academy. One of the models that Peter Knight has put together for estate agents is this idea that when you have a challenge in your business, that you first of all automate. What you can't automate, you outsource. And what you can't outsource, only then do you then hire. And the theory of that is that clearly automation is the most cost-effective way, as long as it's still enhancing client experience, but super efficient, super quick. We then move into outsourcing because it gives us flexibility in terms of cost. So I've been a fan of the outsourced sales progression model for some time. Make the case for outsourcing in the context of sales progression.
Passionately believe that where estate agencies changed and evolved and sort of adapted into the monster that it is now, the sales progression side of it is so important and can take up so much of your sales team and business owners and sales managers' time that you simply can't afford not to, really. How many calls will be coming in daily, weekly that lead to 20-minute, 30-minute, an hour conversations, other calls having to go off, other calls coming in, and all that time you're not actually adding anything to your front end. And what the business owners and their negotiators, what their teams are really good at is getting stuff and selling it. And I don't think it's ever changed that the back end bit of that takes sort of a second fiddle, and it doesn't get the time that it desperately needs. And the clients feel that. The clients actually feel that when they're calling in for an update on their sale because they haven't heard anything for a couple of weeks, and they're getting a negotiator who's running out on a viewing and says he'll call back but then forgets, all of a sudden this fantastic job you've done for this client, you've been out there, they've met the greatest sales manager in the world, given them a great price, they've took great pictures, it's on the market, they've done an incredible open day, they've got over asking price, everything in this experience so far is just tip top, and then all of a sudden they're under offer, and it's just like ghost town. It's finished, and there's a little update, and obviously they want it to get through, but they sort of feel like they've been jilted at the altar at this point. They've walked up there, they're about to say I do, and all of a sudden they're getting nothing at all. At that point, you need an expert for any complications that are going to come up. Hopefully it'll go through nice and smoothly, but keeping constant contact, so they're getting in contact at least sort of once, twice a week. They're getting phone calls, they're getting their chain checked out, they're getting helped if they're getting asked for price reductions. So when they finish this journey and they've like, wow, start to finish, that was top and bottom, we got an incredible service, and they can't wait to recommend you. That's what you want to get out with that. How many business owners can actually sort of look at their pipeline and go, do all of them vendors, do all of them 20 vendors there in my pipeline, are they getting absolutely everything they were getting when I wanted to get their property on the market? Are we delivering what we promised them? When you outsource, that's all we do. Yeah. So we guarantee we'll do it, because if we don't, you as a business owner, you'll wave goodbye to us, and we won't get your business anymore.
So the argument you're making is that because you're specialists, you could have a total focus on one outcome of making sure that you're delivering weekly contact to every single seller.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're specialists. I mean, one of the things which I thought was interesting is in the first half, when we were having the conversation about what type of people do you recruit to be sales progressors, it reminded me very much of the way that we think about estate agents, which is you've got hunters, you've got farmers, and you've got unicorns. The hunters is that brilliant sales manager or that brilliant negotiator who wants to ring the bell or walk in with the contract saying, I've done it, I've got the business. And that's where they get their sense of satisfaction from. Then you've got another group, which are the farmers. And they're often not the ones who are that bothered about sales target, but they're really interested in delivering great outcomes for customers. And it feels to me like in a lot of estate agents, we hire a lot of hunters and we have relatively few farmers. And of course, somewhere in the corner, you might be lucky enough to have found a unicorn. They're very rare. Yeah. I can think of probably 2 or 3 or 4 I've met in my career, and they are rare. So the truth is that you need hunters doing hunting jobs and you need farmers doing farming jobs, and don't try and mix those two things up. Let me make the case for having a dedicated sales progressor, but hiring them yourselves. You've got more control because they're physically sat in your office. You can get the right skill sets. You can make sure they're a farmer. What's the advantage from your point of view of going down the outsourced route rather than hiring those people?
If your CRM system was really good, and
it was Greenhouse, for example.
Like it was Greenhouse.
Other CRMs are available.
That was literally teed up. If it's got that, and it does have systems in place that have got sort of sales progression things built in, fantastic. For me, at that point, it comes down to cold, hard cash and your bottom line profit. Employing a very good sales progressor, if you've got a pipeline of 30, 40 sales, not sure what it'd be in other, like sort of all different parts of the country, but you're going to be looking at least 25, 35,000 by the time you look at national insurance and pension contributions. That figure could be looking at an outgoing of 40, 45,000 a year minimum. Within that as well, then you're going to have the possibility they have holidays. They're allowed holidays. They might go sick now and again, and at any point that those two things happen, guess who's doing the sales progression? It's you as the manager. Believe it or not, some of these people leave as well, and they leave you with a pipeline of 30 deals that you need to progress. Take away all of that risk. Take away all of that. You've got a professional person with a great system to back up what they're doing. Everyone can have holidays. There will always be someone in an outsourced team that guarantees you 365, 24/7 coverage to be looking after your deals. We also offer systems where you don't have to give over your whole pipeline. You might be going through a bit of a sort of dicey patch where that negotiator is overloaded, that negotiator is overloaded. Let's take the pressure off and put 10 deals over. So I would say it gives you flexibility, it gives you options, and it stops you worrying about just walking in one day and your sales progressor's left. And you're then, right, I've got 5 valuations today, I've got a pipeline to get through, and my negotiator's gone missing somewhere.
Yeah, I think it can be an incredibly effective solution for people to be able to manage moving from a fixed to a variable cost base, and then just, the ups and downs of it. So I'm definitely a fan of outsourcing, no doubt about it.
I think it's been about a while. I think more and more agents are considering and doing it, but I get, as an ex-business owner myself, it's my pipeline, I'm worried about turning it away. I think my advice for that would be, try it. I tell you what, if you've got 5 deals that you're okay, there's 5. See how you get on with those. Let me see how the relationship's like. Let me see what the feedback's like. Let's see if the proposition is as good as you say, and I can learn it. And we're getting management info every week on where the pipeline's at, and I don't think people will look back once they've sort of dipped their toe in the water.
Totally. So James, why do you think that great salespeople don't like doing sales progression?
I think they're built different, and I think great salespeople, they are out there hunting. They get off and they really, what sort of floats their boat is getting that sale agreed, ringing that bell, and sort of the buzz that brings. I've done it. It's beating the chest, and that's what gets them up in the morning, to do that and sort of know that they've achieved something.
What would you say the most common reason for a fall through is?
I would say it's time. Right now, I think people fall out of love with a property and start finding reasons to not go through with it if it takes too long. And unfortunately, in the industry and in this country at the moment, it is taking too long. Some of them haven't seen the property for 2 or 3 months. New stuff's coming on. We're very naive to think that they're not out there looking pretty much every day at what's on Rightmove. You need a slight change in prices, or something new comes on cheap, and you've lost your buyer. You've got to keep the momentum. You've got to keep the positivity going.
What would you say the challenge is with when we hire another sales progressor into the business? It's a fixed cost compared to the merits of looking at an outsourced solution.
Yeah, great question, Ian. What I'd say is, as soon as you employ that person, the employment laws in sort of the country now, you're going to have a salary that's not going to change no matter how many units you've got in your pipeline. So on our model, you'll be paying £250 plus VAT per transaction. So if you complete on 100 deals in a year, them 100 deals are going to cost you 25,000. You'd probably need 1.5 sales progressors to get that 100 deals through, I'd have thought. 30, 40k each with all the add-ons, national insurance, pensions. That same pipeline is probably going to look at costing you 80, 90,000. So just on 100 completions on a year, your actual bottom line's benefiting from 65, 70,000 a year. So that would be the biggest benefit, if you like, from moving over. The fixed cost is, that's it. That employee's there, come hell or high water, every single month. You're going to have that fee as your pipeline does this.
What's the biggest mistake that estate agents make when it comes to sales progression?
Rushing the deal together at first. would be the biggest deal. They've got their sale. Let's get this sales memo off no matter what. They don't pause. They don't check chains enough. And my advice would be every single sale that you put together, you've got to dedicate 2, 3, 4 hours, all the little nicks and crannies. You're doing your source of funds absolutely rigidly. You're getting your agreement in principles. You're getting your brokers. You're getting any onward chains and lower chains, all the details, all the contacts, speaking to these people. Where are they? Questioning them, throwing a few curveballs in on the chain below. Don't just take everything as sort of golden. That would be the mistake I'd say is only focusing on just exactly what's in front of them at that moment. Step back, make the right decision for your vendor, make the right decision for you. You want to get paid on that deal. There's no point putting together something that isn't going to come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try and wrap up with my last question. If you could only give one bit of advice to an estate agency business owner going into 2026, and it can't be to outsource your sales progression.
I was ready for that.
Yeah, just the one thing that you would advise them to do to speed up their pipeline turn.
I think actually when you are bringing it all the way back to when you're tying that offer up, because I think that is where you are setting expectations. That is when you're detailing what's going to be happening. That is when you're making sure they're getting the right conveyancer on the book. Obviously won't name any names at all. We all know conveyancers out there that we're not particularly happy with. Don't accept it. Don't accept it on your pipeline. Make a case for the good conveyancers in the industry that you work with. It will make such a difference. It's the difference between it going through and not going through. And I'd also say prep the buyer, prep the vendor correctly. My agents, certainly in sort of the London area, they've gone through a period where they've had to haul prices down. Buyers are still coming in lower than that. We're setting a sale on its route with two people that are totally opposed to each other because they've taken a big hit. They've come up further than they wanted. And what you're doing is you're creating a deal there that only needs a slight little knock and it could fall off the rails. Let them both know they've both made compromises. They've both had to sort of feel the pain a little bit, but we're going to get there together.
I think that's such an important point to make. I think there are two moments in maybe three moments in a estate agency which are unbelievably high skill, which we need to pay attention to. One is the listing and what we do in the home. Two is offer negotiation and how we tie up the deal. And three is when something goes horribly wrong in the sales progression world. And those are where you need your very best people. Appointment booking and prospecting and all of those other bits, they're hard, they're difficult, they're high volume, but the level of experience and skill, that's where you want to put your very best people, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And with technology has helped us with that even more now. Like things like Teams calls. The buyers ask for this off, you do a detailed email, you think you've done an incredible job and you ping it off, you do a little phone call to them. Actually, no, you jump on a Teams call with them now, 15, 20 minutes, bit of FaceTime, you're seeing people's reactions, you're gauging so much about what's going on. And we really encourage all of our team, do that. You don't ask for someone to drop 50,000 of their well-earned money on an email. I mean, that's just bonkers, isn't it? It's just bonkers. Yeah, so lazy.
Amazing. Okay, well, listen, thank you so much for coming in and helping me, I guess, understand what difference sales progression can make. I think there's loads of really, really interesting stuff we've gone through today, so I really appreciate it, James. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.